is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Welcome into Mizzou, That's Who, your podcast for Missouri Athletics here on KC Sports Network. I'm joined by Maggie Johnson. No Gabe today, the father of the podcast. The pod father is not here, as Maggie and I are going to tackle this ourselves. Hey, listen, might be cooking on another guest, so you might want to stay tuned there for next week's podcast. Could have something big in the hopper there. Those were two puns with current players that I did not anticipate to do. That was not scripted, but Maggie, how are you doing?
Yeah, you killed that. I'm doing great. We're 4-0. I feel like we're really it's a different vibe. It's a way different vibe from last year. I feel like every time we came on here last year, we were like, oh, it was on Sunday. I text my friend and I was like, did you know a year ago we lost to Auburn? And I remember last year after we lost to Auburn, I was like, oh, I threw something in my living room last year after that loss, and we were just so depressed. So it's just such a different vibe, and we don't know how the season's going to play out, but I'm living it up for now. So
I think you have to. Mizzou 4-0 entered the AP poll at number 23. I tweeted out this morning that Pro Football Focus, this morning as being in Tuesday, Pro Football Focus has them ranked number 19 in the country. I don't know if you saw that. But Pro Football Focus very high on the Tigers. There's been some pretty impressive stats coming out Pro Football Focus wise with some just Mizzou players in general. I think the folks at PFF are loving Luther Burden in terms of the statistical categories that they have there. And listen, who could not love Luther Burden after the performance that he put on Saturday, Maggie? I know that you were there. You were in the Dome. You were at the Dome at America's Center. Listen, I think that's an incredible name, and I don't think it should ever change. But what were the vibes like? Give me the vibe check that you had at the Dome.
So the Dome vibes were great. I mean, the vibes all over St. Louis were great. So we woke up in the morning with the 6:30 kickoff. You know, it's at first I was a little upset about it because there's so many great games on Saturday. I really wanted to watch Ohio State Notre Dame. I'm not gonna lie. So I was a little upset about it, but and I think most of the country wanted to watch that game too, because I think they broke some kind of record that was set in like 1993 for the most watched game. But we woke up, we went to brunch, and then we went downtown and we did it all. We went to the Arch, we went to the rally at Ballpark Village, we tailgated, we went to the there was like a tailgate near the Dome that had like Ryan Wingo was there and some other recruits were there. It was really cool. He came over to our tailgate. That was awesome, just to see recruits kind of mingling with fans. It was just an awesome vibe. There were, not that many Memphis fans there, but we did get to meet some Memphis fans. But there was a lot more Mizzou fans than I even thought were going to be there. I think the K-State game helped that a little bit. I kind of heard some rumors that it sold a few tickets. But no, the vibes inside were great too. I mean, families, I sat near Luther Burden's family.
Oh, nice.
There were probably 50 plus people in his logos all over. So, and I had my touchdown Luther button on. So, I got some looks for that, but the vibes were awesome. It was loud in there. It, obviously the turf didn't look amazing. I heard, I know, but I didn't even pay attention to it, honestly, being there. I wasn't thinking about it, but
it didn't look good optically on TV. And I think there was a really good turnout. From what I could see on TV, it seemed to be a really good turnout there. I don't know. At the time, I might have been emotionally tweeting about it, of like never playing there again just because of the turf and having turf issues just in the NFL in general. It's a hot button issue, it seems like right now, with turf and injuries and natural grass, everything like that. It didn't look the best because they still had like lines from, I don't know if it probably the XFL, I assume. Lines on the field, which didn't really line up all that well, and that was kind of a look. And I know some people, before the game started, I was having a conversation with BJ Kissel, obviously the founder of KCSN, and he was like, why are people upset about like Mizzou having both end zones? With the field being painted Mizzou? I was like, well, I mean, it's technically a home game for Mizzou. It's not like they built this as like a net neutral site game where it was going to be half Memphis and half Mizzou fans. Like, this is a game for Mizzou. It's not like the bragging rights game where it's half Illinois and it's half Mizzou. And that's what he thought it was. He thought it was like bragging rights. He thought they were playing Illinois. He's like, why didn't they give Illinois an end zone? Well, No, Missouri chose to bring this game to St. Louis. So they treated it as a home game, as they should have. And it seemed like by the crowd there that it was a home game, that there were a lot of Missouri fans there. I think a lot of support. I think you could feel the support from St. Louis there. But yeah, maybe I was a little bit too emotional, Maggie, in saying that the Chiefs, Mizzou should never play there, just because I didn't like the injuries that happened on the game, and I kind of blamed them on the turf, possibly being a victim of that. But it optically wasn't the best look of playing surface. It's also a weird. I don't know if it's the lighting in there, but the grass looks like an olive color, and it just kind of looks a little off. I don't know if it's like the lighting or if it's like actually that olive type color.
Yeah, I think it was a little probably that off color, but it's so weird. I just didn't notice it until I watched highlights. Well, because people were complaining about it and they were tweeting. I'm like, why is everybody complaining we're 4-0? And then I watched it. I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess it doesn't look that good. But then I also thought about it, and because people were like, I'm so embarrassed. And then I thought about it this way. I'm like, yeah, but nobody watched it except Mizzou fans.
That's true.
Nobody watched that. Maybe Memphis fans, but nobody watched that game except for us. So, I mean, it was really just a showcase for the Mizzou players and for people in St. Louis and for fans. So, I mean, that's kind of also a reason it was probably Memphis that we played there. I mean, we were never going to give K-State a neutral site game. I mean, you know what I mean? We were going to make sure we got to play them at home after we played them at their home. So, I mean, I think it was great for those players to get a play. I mean, and look at the games Brady Cook had. He went 18 for 25, 341 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Cody Schrader had 14 carries, 123 yards and a touchdown. Luther Burden, 10 catches, 177 yards. And yes, he had an injury, but it was a cramp and it had nothing to do with the turf. So we had three great St. Louis players play great games. It was awesome to see. I had a blast. I'm not even from St. Louis, but it was cool to get to have that in my backyard. I live a mile away. So I loved it. I had so much fun, and of course, I would love to get to have another game close, but I always went to the games at Arrowhead too. So to have 40,000 strong, and think about it this way as well. I always went to the Bragging Rights game. That was when I was in, or I guess it wasn't the Bragging Rights game. It was called like arch something.
Yeah, the arch rivalry, I think.
Yeah. And I always went to those games because that's when I was in college, when it was there. But there was probably close to a sellout, and that's about 60,000 people. So we had 40,000 plus, and that's with it mixed. So for that to be that many Mizzou fans, I would say is a pretty good crowd, considering I would say there was 2,000 Memphis fans there, maybe a little bit more. So I was pretty pleased with the crowd overall.
Yeah, I think the crowd was good, but let's get into the game a little bit here, because you mentioned, and that was the first note that I took when I was writing down some game thoughts, was St. Louis guys showing out. Brady Cook having a really good game. Luther Burden having a career day, I think, in terms of both catches and yards, or receptions and yards. I think it was a career day on that side of things. Cody Schrader showing out again. I don't know if you saw that just emotional video that was tweeted out. I can't remember who tweeted it out. I'll go find it. I want to give him proper credit for that interview they had with the Schraders. But that's what it's about right there, having those guys in their hometown showing out, playing well. And this was a game really too that didn't feel as close as the score always was, Maggie. I don't know if you felt that in the stadium, but it never, even when Missouri was down, I think it was like 10-7, it never felt like that game was out of control for Missouri. And I don't know if there's very many games that we can say that about a Missouri team in the past year. Since we've been doing this podcast, I don't think we can ever say like a game ever felt out of Missouri's control. That one, even when they were down, didn't feel out of their control. They had multiple score leads at some point, but like even the final score being 7, which they do cover. I know some people do care about that. They did end up covering in that game. I would have loved to see them win by multiple scores, but even with that game ending as a 7-point win, it felt like it was one of those games where you look back at the score and you're like, oh, that game looks a lot closer than it really was. But I think that the performance, you couldn't have asked for a better performance with who they were missing too. Innis Rakestraw didn't play in that game, kind of mysteriously didn't play in that game. And they had some guys dealing with injuries. They had some guys leave the game. They had Luther Burden not come back for a while, but I still think they scored on that drive. So, I mean, they had guys step up. And that was something that Gabe mentioned last week in the K-State game. as they had guys outside of Luther Burden stepping up. Marquise Johnson catching a big touchdown pass again. He seems to be a real problem for some teams, so I'm excited to see how they use him moving forward. I'm very excited about that. But the St. Louis guys showing out, and I'm glad that you brought that up first, because I think that's an important thing to talk about, with just those guys being able to play on their home turf in the Dome. I know people in St. Louis, people from St. Louis really care about that place. Even, myself growing up in Missouri, like we knew, and Maggie, you mentioned the same thing too, is that like that's where you play the state championship, is the Dome. I know they don't play it there anymore. I think it bounces back and forth between Missouri and Missouri State. But like growing up, you're like, we want to make it to the Dome. We got to go to the Dome. Road to the Dome, I think, was always what people were saying. So like growing up in Missouri and it being such a big place for recruiting as well, that like that's where it is. Like that's the pinnacle, and it comes to the state of Missouri. So having those guys from in-state, from St. Louis, be able to perform on that stage is really cool. It's a really special thing.
And Drink talked about that in his press conference too. He talked about how that's what he wanted those recruits to see. Look, you can come here and you can be like Luther Burden, and you can have these games and you can do it in front of your home crowd, and you can do it in front of your family. Yeah. And your 85-year-old grandmother, she can make that 2-hour drive with your family, and she can come to every single game and she can watch you play. And I think that that's a huge selling point. And I get it, because I'm close to my family, but I don't live close to my grandparents, and I would love to be able to see my grandparents more. So I understand the selling point that they're trying to push, and all we can do is cross our fingers and hope that it works.
Yeah.
But you just never know with NIL and everything. There's just so much more for these players to consider, and especially with big names like Ryan Wingo, for example. There's just way more on the table for these guys than we even can fathom. So yeah, Drink did what he could this weekend, and hopefully it works. But I do like what you said about Marquise Johnson. He is crazy fast. I like what you said about seeing what he can do, because on that big run, or that big catch for Luther Burden, he's the only reason that Luther Burden got that, because he was able to pull the defenders away from Luther Burden. So yeah, love what we're seeing from him. Hope he can get the ball more. He was massive in our game against K-State last week with that huge catch. So yeah, loving what I'm seeing from him. Gosh, so many people did so many things. Nate Pete had 15 carries for 65 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he was explosive. The offensive line had probably their best game that they've had. So, I mean, yeah, you love to see it. You really do. Yeah. There were issues too, but you love to see what you did see.
Absolutely. And I've mentioned PFF being high on the Tigers. Now, this is from Gerard Hamilton. Some PFF insights here on PowerMizzou.com. Total offense grade 86.3. The defensive grade was 88.8. Now, in a game, I think where Mizzou allowed a good amount of yardage, just total offensive yardage, it was a weird game for the defense, because, again, as I mentioned, like it never felt like Missouri was out of it, but like I think Memphis put up some decent like numbers yardage wise. So like the defense always felt like they were in control, but it was one of those things where I'm looking at the team stats here. I think they allowed, it was like almost 400 yards of 399 total yards. But Missouri outpaced them with 542, 316 passing yards, and 83 rushing yards. So the run defense showing up real stout. Love to see it. Again, that defensive line being something that Missouri needed some production from some guys that they're getting production from some guys on. So it's been a very encouraging thing. But Maggie, I do want to talk more about this game. But first, I got to tell you about our friends at homefieldapparel.com. Listen, they've got the great stuff. They've got the good vintage stuff. Maggie is showing off one of their shirts right now. I got that shirt on the way. That shirt is going to be in my mailbox probably when I get home. Very excited to throw that one on. I love a good ringer.
It's awesome.
It is really, I like the script Tigers on it. It's awesome. It's great. It's great design. That's not the only great design they have. I think I got a Duncan Truman on the way. I got the Mizzou hoodie coming. They've got great designs from Mizzou. Also over 150 other colleges. So if you're looking about going to another college game as a neutral, and you want to support the home team, head on over to homefieldapparel.com. You can find yourself a pretty sick shirt because I'm sure they've got the college you're looking for. I'm sure they've got a really sick vintage design. Kids love the vintage stuff, Maggie. They love them. I can speak for myself. I love the vintage designs, especially like Tulane. Also, Idaho and Idaho State were new drops at I didn't know I needed an Idaho Vandals shirt.
That's an awesome mascot.
Didn't know I needed it until I saw them drop it. And they've got Kibby Dome merch too. Oh my gosh. You can't go wrong at homefieldapparel.com. So make sure you go support them. You can support us by using code KCSN23. That'll help you out a little bit too, as you get 15% off your first purchase, whether that's Mizzou, whether that's anything that you need it to be. Anything that you want at homefieldapparel.com, 15% off that first order. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more Memphis as we'll clean up some things from this game and then look ahead to Vandy. We'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
All right, Maggie, anything we didn't get to so far that you want to talk about? I know you mentioned a lot of guys had some good games. A lot of guys popping off the stat sheet here. Anyone that we haven't mentioned that you want to talk about?
Well, I would say one of our biggest issues of the night did you notice that we went 0 for 8 on third down?
Yeah, I don't know. I saw somebody tweet this. I can't remember who it was either. I'm really bad at remembering who people tweet, which people tweet stuff. They didn't know if it was impressive or concerning that Missouri won this football game without converting a third down. I tend to lean. I think it's kind of impressive that they did that, but it is a little concerning that they didn't convert a third down.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a little bit, a little bit out of character. I mean, I guess it kind of takes us back to those earlier couple of games. And I don't know, maybe that's, we're used to having somebody like Barrett Bannister, where I didn't really worry about the third downs that often because we're like, oh, just throw Barrett Bannister out there.
Right.
We'll convert on that third down. It's fine. He wasn't even a tight end, but we're a little. This is actually kind of weird for me to say because after last week we were using tight ends and then Norfleet got hurt. So now we're kind of back to not really using tight ends. But, I'm hoping that Norfleet is just healing a little bit, which I think that they said that he had something with his ribs. It's just a very painful rib injury, not really a long-term rib injury, I think is what Drink had said. So hoping we'll get him back this week, if not this week. Pretty sure for the LSU game, because he just killed it for us against Kansas State. So would love to have him back for third downs. But yeah, that was just extremely weird. Drink said he's never even won a game that he thinks he's been 0 for on third down. So we really need to get that worked out because that was odd. And then on the flip side, our third down defense was terrible.
Right.
I mean, terrible. Our first and second down defense was pretty awesome, but we were giving up 3rd and 18s, 3rd and 20s for first downs all night. And it's not just this week. We've been doing it. I think we're one of the worst. I found this, a stat on it. We're giving it up, or we're like 50.8%. We're 122nd in the country in 3rd and 4th down defense. It's pretty terrible. I mean, for as good as our defense, for as stout as our defense is, it's pretty terrible.
Right. Yeah, I was just looking that up. It's just on the year because it feels like anecdotally, I should say. I don't have the number. They got better. Missouri got better in the second half against Kansas State on third down, but in the first half, Kansas State was living on third down. Like they could get whatever third down conversions that they wanted to. And it feels like Mizzou's defense, especially on third down, has not been very good when it comes to just how good they've been on first and second down. Like they're pretty good. I mean they've been able to force turnovers. They've been able to do a lot of things, but on third down, it seems like I don't know what it is, but it just anecdotally, I'm looking at the numbers right now, but it just seems like something on third down that just doesn't seem right.
And I'm not sure if it's because in Blake Baker's offense, we blitz basically.
Could be.
every play. So, I mean, obviously that's leaving somebody open, like every time. But you have to find a way to not let that person that's open run for 18 to 20 yards. I mean, if you're going to do that, I don't know. You've got to figure something out, or you have to mix it up. Like, I feel like the blitz worked a lot better against K-State. I mean, Ben Sinnott was able to, some plays beat us. He dropped a couple of passes that probably he should not have dropped. That maybe hurt them at the end of that game.
Yeah.
But that wasn't happening against Memphis. They were converting basically every time. I did notice, though, at the end of the game that we did pull off against Memphis. We did pull off on a couple of blitzes, and they didn't convert. So, I mean, it was nice that they did finally kind of adjust, but it was killing us a lot of that game, and I do think that it did hurt us. So, I mean, it's just little things like that you need to address, and I don't know if it's just something that Baker lives and dies by. It seems like maybe it is, but
could be, yeah. So I'm looking at these season cumulative numbers. This is on the Missouri website, Tigers.com. I'm looking this up right now, and I see the opponents on the third down conversions are 22 of 66. It's a 39%, which is I guess better for the Missouri defense than I would have thought. And it might just be because the third downs that the other teams are converting are maybe a little bit bigger situations. So it feels like the third down defense is a little bit worse. Now, the third down offense for Missouri has been worse than what they have allowed on defense, as they're only 16 of 44. Fourth down conversions, they're 2 of 3, though. So when they want to go for it on fourth down, they're getting it at a 66% clip. And then on the flip side, I just saw this one too. Oh, wow. 7 of 10, the opponents are against the Missouri defense on fourth down conversions. So that's a 70% clip that teams are converting third downs on. And another interesting one, a red zone. The red zone defense for Missouri, they've allowed 12 scores on 12 times. So they're 12. So opponents are 12 of 12 and getting points when they enter the red zone for Mizzou. Not something I would have anticipated that stat, truthfully. But I think that might be. I mean, they've only scored 8 touchdowns, so that's 8, 9, 10, 11. That's 4 field goals that they have allowed through. But it seems like every time they're going to the end zone, the red zone, that the opponents are scoring. So don't love that there. Now defenses too, as we always talk about on the NFL side of things, especially on the Chiefs side of things, is you want to wait a little bit to judge a defense normally, because defenses usually start a little bit slower. The defense has been playing really well, and probably the reason that they've won most of their games moving forward since the Kansas State game. They kept them in it, and then I really think that, I could say the offense, Mizzou just kept scoring points against Memphis, which really helps, because if it was going to come down to Missouri's defense holding them, I don't know, because they were a little leaky when it comes to the pass coverage, pass defense. But Chris Abrams-Drain, 2 interceptions in this game. I think he has all of Missouri's 3 interceptions this year.
I think Marcus Clark had one of the interceptions, and he was filling in for Drayden Norwood.
Yes, you're right.
And apparently Marcus Clark didn't practice there at all, because obviously he didn't think that he was going to be playing there. So, that's a nice get for him. Not really used to playing there. So yeah, props to him. He did get beat on one of the touchdowns. It just kind of is what it is. It's not a position that you typically play.
Right.
But also kind of like what you said about the game not really feeling as close as the score, was. One of those is because, Cody Schrader fumbled in their red zone. It's kind of a killer. The 4th and 1, that was extremely weird. That Brady Cook threw that super weird ball. I don't know if you remember that. It was a turnover on downs. We went for it on 4th and 1 instead of kicking the ball, which I'm totally fine with. I was super into Drink's aggressiveness in this game. The onside kick definitely sucked if we were offsides, but which he even said they'd been practicing it all week. Just a mistake that shouldn't have happened, but I'm totally fine with him going for it on 4th and 1. But at that mistake to me of not making that pass is because they, and my friend and I were talking about this during the game. It's because they haven't practiced that in a game all year because they punted it all year, in that exact same spot. Yeah. In that exact same spot on a 4th and 1 in their other territory, they punted it. So they were going for it in a situation they just hadn't been in, made a silly mistake when Cook could have ran for it, or he could have thrown it to Schrader or anything like that. It was just a dumb thing. But then it was turnover and downs. They scored on that possession. It was just stuff like that. But like Drink said in his press conference, we ended up with the ball at the end of the game. What more can you ask for? We gave up a touchdown to make the game that close. But when you end up with the ball at the end of the game, it's giving you the opportunity to, technically, you could have scored to go up again. So, yeah, I wasn't disappointed with the score.
No.
6.5, won by 7.
Yeah.
It kind of just is, with a lot of injuries, it just is, or 4-0.
They don't take them away for being ugly. And I don't want to say like this was an ugly win by any stretch of the means there. I thought the offense played really well. The defense probably didn't play up to the standard that we expect the defense to play. But I think that this is just one of those where you'll take the win no matter the margin of victory, especially coming off such a big game in Kansas State. That game was huge. As we put a bow on this, I got a couple of tweets from Dave Matter here that tweeted some stuff out after the game on these came from Sunday. But he says Mizzou now ranked both in national polls, number 23 in the AP, first time ranked in the AP since 2019. Mizzou now 22 in the coaches poll, first time ranked by the coaches since 2015.
Whoa,
that's kind of crazy.
I didn't know that.
First time, and that was kind of nuts. Second one here from Dave. Mizzou offensive leaders in SEC and Power 5 rankings. Brady Cook, quarterback rating of 185.2, is number 2 in the SEC, number 10 in Power 5. Cody Schrader rushing 100.8 yards per game, number 1 in the SEC, number 9 in Power 5. I believe Cody Schrader also leads in terms of just total rushing yards as a whole in the SEC. And Luther Burden receiving 126 yards per game, number 3 in the SEC, number 4 in the Power 5. So all of a sudden now, it looks like Mizzou is a heavy offensive team. That with this high-flying Mizzou offense, once Eli Drinkwitz decided to take the training wheels off of Kirby Moore, let him go ahead and cook some stuff up, maybe they were actually hiding some stuff going into the Kansas State game to kind of keep them by surprise. I know that was a topic of conversation, but it does look like this offense has a little bit more potency than we saw in the first 2 weeks against Middle Tennessee and South Dakota. But Maggie, it is now time to talk about Vanderbilt. But before I talk about Vanderbilt, I got to tell you about our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook. And we're back with another week of football, and DraftKings Sportsbook is keeping us in on the NFL action with great offers every single game day. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Go ahead and throw a $5 down on any of this week's epic matchups and walk away an instant winner. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. Football is more fun when you're in on the action, so download the app now and sign up with code KCSN. New customers can bet just $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL with code KCSN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. Licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles, Louisiana. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expires 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. All right, Maggie, let's talk about Vandy. Not the historic powerhouse that we're used to seeing. Not the game that you would that a lot of people will get up for. This is in Vanderbilt.
Who's missing half a stadium, I think.
Who is playing football in an active construction zone. That should be made clear. That is an active construction zone going on right now. It is actually insane. I'm glad that they're putting like money into that program. I'm glad that they're putting some effort into the Vanderbilt program there. They've had a good baseball program, good baseball facilities. Now they're putting some of that time, effort, and money and those resources into football. Wish they would have done it a little bit before the season started, so they would have had
like August, I think.
Yeah,
what am I doing?
I don't know. They just forgot that football was actually a season still going on. But Missouri travels to Vandy. That's a 3 p.m. kickoff. First thoughts on that game, Maggie?
My first thoughts. Okay, so these games are weird, especially in Nashville. I have been to a Mizzou Vanderbilt game and watched the Missouri Tigers lose in Nashville. I have been there. I've witnessed it. It's not been enjoyable because you don't go to Nashville to not have fun. And I've been to Nashville and I've had fun, but it's not enjoyable watching your team lose to Vanderbilt. And I think the score was like 9-6 or something. It's terrible. It was awful. I mean, it was terrible. We didn't score a touchdown. So, yeah, it's really bad. I think it was like 2015, so it was really bad. But so I'm just hoping that no one's like looking ahead. Obviously, we've been talking about the LSU game a lot, not on the podcast, but just this week with Twitter and like with times being released and teams being ranked and things like that. So
we'll get there.
Just hoping Just hoping like nothing's being overlooked or anything like that. But Vanderbilt is definitely not a slouch. They have a very good quarterback. They have very good wide receivers. It's not going to be a team that we're just going to go in there and walk all over them, especially with the injuries that we have. So I'm expecting a dogfight. I really am.
Yeah.
We like to keep these games close, as we've had 3 1-possession games already this year. So
yeah, I would love to see Missouri's defense come out here and kind of flex some muscle, show some dominance over a team where it seems like Clark Lee gave an update on A.J. Swan, the quarterback of Vanderbilt, and says it's to be determined, is what he said about his playing status. Got an arm strain. He's working through that. This is a quote from him here. We have to play better at that position. Too early to tell what it might look like on Saturday. He's 97 of 173. That's a 53% completion percentage. Like that to be a little bit higher. For 1,290 yards, 11 touchdowns, 7 picks. So he's thrown a lot of interceptions this year. Could be a good opportunistic offense to face for this Missouri defense. I mean, they've got some good guys on that team. Like I think they've got some players for the first time that you can look at as like. I talked with Matt Lane about this too. We do the college football show here on KCSN where we look at the prospects, and they've got a guy. I mean, when you talk about Will Shepherd. He's a guy that could be drafted in the NFL, and that's maybe the first time you can say that about a skill position player at Vanderbilt in a while. I mean, I think they've had some linebackers come through there. They've got a couple decent defensive guys, but Will Shepherd's good. A.J. Swan, as I mentioned, questionable, but his first year was pretty solid at Vanderbilt. They got a good running back too, Patrick Smith. He's a pretty good. London Humphreys is I believe a freshman this year who's been playing pretty well for them at wide receiver. So they've got some talent on the wide receiver position. And I know Missouri, Dennis Gates updated Darius Robinson, Brady Cook, Luther Burden, Brett Norfleet were all questionable ahead of Vandy with Mekhi Miller being out. Didn't hear anything about Ennis Rakestraw, which
we didn't last week either, did we?
Right. We didn't. I'm curious what the situation is going to be there, because I think having both of those guys back to be able to cover the wide receivers and the weapons that they have at Vandy is going to be important.
I heard some people joking that Ennis Rakestraw was sitting out because of the did you see the video, or not the video, but it's just like a photo from the K-State game of like 4 players like flipping the bird to the kid. And apparently that's Rakestraw. So I don't know if it is or not. I didn't look, but there were some people joking that that's him and that's why he's staying now. I don't know if that's true, but there were just people joking about it, saying that that's why he sat out. But I don't know. But yeah, hopefully we really do need our corners back. They're studs, they're athletes, and you see those pass deflections they're getting all the time and things like that. So I don't think we're getting Norwood back, but right. I think Brady Cook's going to be fine. I think Luther Burden's going to be fine. Luther Burden had a cramp.
Yeah.
He's going to be fine.
Saying he's questionable does you a whole lot more than saying he's going to play.
Right.
When you think about that game planning and strategy wise, the same thing you can say the same thing about Clark Lee talking about, AJ Swamp being questionable. It's to be determined with him. He'll probably play. I would assume that he's going to play. But to say he's questionable does you a whole lot more than saying, oh yeah, he's going to play. He'll be fine.
Right. Yeah. No. Totally. I think that I think our run game's going to be big I think Cody Schrader, Nate Pete, I think it's going to be a big opportunity for them to really go out there and, show off a little bit. I don't think that their D line is great at Vandy. So I think if our offensive line can really step up, have a game similar to how they played against Memphis, I don't see why both of them can't have pretty good games. And I think Cody Schrader's, is there really any doubt that he's our lead back?
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
By now. Pete's explosive, and I think he showed some.
It's a good compliment. They're a good tandem.
I think so too. There's some games I'm like, oh shoot, maybe Pete should be our lead back. And then Cody Schrader goes out there and just does something crazy. I'm like, oh, never mind. I don't know. I agree. I think they're a great tandem.
Having them two matchup based on who you're playing could be a really interesting thing too. Okay, we want a little bit more pop here, so we'll go with this guy. Or a little bit more speed, so we're gonna go with this guy here, type of deal. So I do like what they have in the running back room. When you talk about the running game, I think that Vandy does. Traditionally on defense, they usually have guys that's where they usually have guys is on the defensive side of the ball. They got a transfer from Stanford. DeCosmo is his last name. Anis, that's I think how you say his first name, but he's pretty good over at Stanford. They got a good transfer over there. But I think you're right. This is a game where I think Missouri does need to show a little bit of a little dominance on the defensive side of the ball. Would love to see them push around some of these guys. As looking at the scores from the past 3 years, Mizzou has won the last 3 straight games. In 2019, they lost to Vandy 21-14. But Vandy, the last 2 years, has covered. Vandy being a plus 14 favorite last year, plus 16 underdog, I should say. Last year was 14. 2021 was 16. Underdog both times. They covered in both of those games. This year, Missouri is favored by 13 points going on the road. We got a home dog of 13 points for this one. So
that line keeps going up too. I think it started at 11.5. And then earlier today, it was 12, I thought. And then 13. I don't know.
Let's see here. Yeah, it looks like 2 days ago it was at 12. It's gone up to 13, and it's gone as high as 13.5, and it's kind of come back down to 13 according to DraftKings. Here what they've had that lineup, but I think it did open at some books at 11, is what I saw. But DraftKings Sportsbook projecting Missouri to win by 2 scores. I think with that, Maggie, I can speak for both of us, is that we would really like to see Mizzou win by more than 2 scores.
I would love to see us win by at least 2 scores. I'd love 2 scores. I would love 10 points. I would love to see us win by, over 1 possession, 2 possessions. I'd love to see us win by 2 possessions. I would like to score and know that even if they score a touchdown, it's not going to be a tie game, because I just feel like we can't get over that hump. Every single time we just can't get over that hump. And I would love for them to just feel confident when they're kicking the ball away, that team, that they can't, get that. Exactly. Mm-hmm. You would like to see that. You'd like to take that pressure off a little bit. And I would like to see them just put Vandy away.
Yep.
I mean, we're watching other teams put Vandy away. You know what I mean? We're watching plenty of other teams put Vandy away. So Kentucky had Vandy put away. I mean, they still won. I think like 14 or something like that. But
looking back at Vandy's last games, I mean, they lose. They're on a 3-game losing streak right now. Vandy is. They obviously start the season by beating Hawaii in a game that was probably a lot closer than it should have been. They blow out Alabama A&M, not Texas A&M. They lose to Wake Forest by 16. Lose to UNLV by 3 in the Fighting Barry-Odums out there, and they lose to Kentucky 45-28. I would like to see something similar to the Kentucky game, and in terms of the result, I'd love to see less points allowed, obviously. But
I'd like to see us score 45 points.
I would love to see 45 points. That would be great. But I think going big picture wise, getting this game, moving to 5-0, getting this win, getting the first SEC win, moving to 5-0, and then hosting LSU, something that we talked about at the beginning of the season, that we even talked about a very strong possibility of Missouri being 5-0, hosting LSU. Very real possibility now with Vanderbilt right here. That kickoff time is at 11 a.m. I know a lot of people are kind of upset about that kickoff time. I don't necessarily, I don't know. I like it. Personally, I like the 11 a.m. kickoff games. But 11 a.m. kick, I believe Dave Matter also tweeted out the last time in 2019 LSU came to Mizzou, or 2020 it would have been, right? Yeah. They came to Mizzou. That was also an 11 a.m. kickoff. So I don't have, Maggie, a big gripe with it. I don't know personally how you feel about it.
I think the issue for me with the 11 a.m. games, it's not so much that I mind watching 11 a.m. games. I actually like watching 11 a.m. games when I'm at home. But it's watching 11 a.m. games when I'm in attendance that I don't like as much, because I like the tailgating and the socializing, and, you know, that part is enjoyable. Whenever, you know, you do 11 a.m. games now, I have to go up on the Friday night and then wake up, or, you know, do all that. So it's just different. I mean, I'm doing it, so it's like, I'm not going to not do it because of it, but it's just, you know, kind of changes. I also saw something that says, I think Mizzou has the fourth most 11 a.m. games since, I don't remember how many years since, and LSU, and it was like 34 or 35. LSU has the least amount of home 11 a.m. games with 11. So it's kind of just like, okay, like, and then people were like, well, that's because it's the SEC East. And then I'm like, yeah, but we're in the, like, I get it because of the time zone, but we're not in that time zone. So it doesn't really work for us. But I mean, it is what it is. It worked out fine for us last time we played them at home. It worked out fine for us when we played K-State at home. So just, it's sold out. It's going to be rowdy. It's going to be fun. So I know there's only resale tickets left. So if you don't have them, buy them. So LSU fans don't buy them. And get there, be loud. It'll be a blast. I'm excited.
It should be a good game. Very excited for that one. That 11 a.m. kickoff. It's good for me. Maggie, I've got a wedding that day.
No.
Yeah. So I was.
Why? So does my friend, actually. My friend does too.
I was fully planning on being in attendance, and when I brought it up to my girlfriend, she said, we cannot do that. I said, please don't tell me that we have a wedding. Yeah, we do.
Not October 7th.
Yeah. So it's okay because the wedding's not until later in the day. The 11 a.m. kickoff, maybe that's why I feel a little bit better about it, is I can watch the full game and then still be okay in terms of the wedding. So I'll still get to watch the game. I just, unfortunately, won't get to be there. But very happy for the couple getting married. But,
all weddings.
All weddings. That's just brutal. Absolutely brutal. Maggie, to wrap this one up, let's do some housekeeping, because I think that there are some Missouri things that we haven't talked about yet in terms of basketball that have happened in the past couple days, past week since we've last recorded. Anor Boateng, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I'm going to go with that until I'm told differently. Anor Boateng, high four-star guy, Composite 5-star, I believe, by 24/7. Depends on where you want to get your recruiting rankings to get a 4 or 5-star. He commits to Missouri, made them the number 1 recruiting class in the country in terms of 2024 for a minute. I think UNC's back up there. Now they're at number 2, according to Rivals in that. And they've also hosted Jaden
Quaintance, yes.
Jaden Quaintance a couple days ago. They hosted him. He's a 5-star. So that is a 5-star guy. That is, I think, a consensus 5-star by a lot of places. Dennis Gates is cooking something over there in Mizzou Arena, and he's got himself quite the class. I think there's a lot of excitement coming up for Mizzou basketball. Obviously, a lot of excitement for Mizzou football still. I feel like at this point last year, as you mentioned, it was the Auburn game that we were like, all right, when does non-con start? When does the non-con schedule start up? But this year, fully locked in on the Missouri Tigers football team.
Yeah, I'm super excited about basketball. First off, I'm excited about we host Memphis in basketball. I think that'll be great. I think, we get them in Como. We'll have bragging rights. We play in Lawrence. So I think we've got an exciting non-con schedule. And then we're getting, oh my gosh, like the recruits are amazing. And they're only going to bring in better recruits. They're all recruiting each other, which I think is so important. And I think a lot of them weren't doing that in the past. And I just think that that's so important now. But the staff, it's such like a team effort. Like you've got Dennis, you've got CY, and they're all part of it. And I think these players just respect them so much and they see the vision. And maybe it's taken us a while to really see the vision, but I think the fans are seeing the vision now. And I think that maybe comes with seeing the number 1 and the number 2 next to the ranking on 247. But if that's what it takes for people to buy in, then maybe that's what it takes for people to buy in. But I'm pretty bought in. I'm excited. So, bring on hoop season. I think we might have a little bit of a fall off from where we were last year. Just like a little bit of a, we'll miss Kobe for sure. But if it's a little bit of a stepping stone season to get us to where we're going to be with our class for next year, I'm fine with it. Yeah. I'm totally fine with it. So bring it on.
I don't know how. Personally, I don't feel like the expectations. I should say my personal expectations for the Missouri basketball program aren't wildly high right now. Like, we need to go to the Elite Eight this year. That's not like if they make the tournament, I think it's a good year. Like, that's kind of where I am. And I know some people feel differently. That's okay. Like, I understand. But like for me personally, we make the tournament, be pretty happy with that. Especially after losing Kobe. They did have a lot of guys come back, and their roster looks pretty good right now. But they're going to have to replace a lot of scoring with Kobe Brown. And that's going to be probably a conversation for another day, as the Missouri football Tigers 4-0 going into Vandy. Very strong possibility to be 5-0 going into LSU, coming to Como on, did they say that was ESPN?
It is ESPN, 11 a.m. ESPN.
They at least made it an ESPN game. So,
yeah. I mean, it's prime time. It's going to be right after College game day. I mean,
absolutely.
It's great exposure for us.
It'll be great exposure, especially after they win and then they go 6-0 and they'll already become bowl eligible. That'll be great. But Maggie, let's give some score predictions for the Vandy game. Wrapping up this podcast here. What do you got?
Okay. This was my score prediction for Memphis, but I'm going to do it again because I think it's a good score. I'm going to do 34-17.
Wow. I have written down my score already, just so for clarity's sake. My score is written down. I had 37-17 written down. Okay. So we're very close. I think we're right on the same page when it comes to 17 points allowed would be a good day for Missouri. Anything, if it's like 21, I'll be like, okay, fine. Like, whatever. Maybe they got a garbage touchdown, a garbage time touchdown there. Okay. But I think 17 points is kind of the sweet spot that I want to see the Missouri defense kind of come out and flex their muscle. But Maggie, appreciate it. Next week, we will have another guest. Fingers crossed. Working on a guest. I think we're gonna have a good guest. I think you're gonna have to be tuned into us here at Mizzou That's Who and KC Sports Network. Really appreciate you guys listening all the way to the end of the podcast. We'll be back with more Mizzou content as the week goes on and recapping that Vanderbilt game, where hopefully Missouri will pull out a victory and become 5-0, hosting the LSU Tigers coming up in, that'd be week 6 of the college football season. So for Maggie Johnson, I'm Tucker Franklin. We'll talk to you later.